We know this conflict did not begin in October 2023. It can only be resolved through principled compromise based on appreciation of the proper context.
Calls for immediate end to Israeli war in Gaza resonate as extraordinary Arab Islamic summit holds in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
How do you drive resilience? How do you scale up resilience? How do you build resilience? Because without building resilience, we cannot talk about addressing climate action, climate change.
29th Annual Summit UN Climate Change Conference kicks off in Baku, Azerbaijan. Stakeholders preach unity for greener future. And discussions to return Nigeria to parliamentary system of government begin.
The last 25 years has not actually given Nigerian citizens what they were expecting from their governments.
Hello and thank you for joining us on the Network News tonight. I'm Naja'atu Tijani. Joining us from Lagos is Hingino John Adams. Musa Abubakar will give us happenings in the world of business. Musa, what's on your menu tonight?
The Nigerian equities market begins the week in positive territory.
Well, hold that thought. Ayodeji is with reports from the sporting world. Ayodeji, what's new? Let us know.
Well, Naja, more players trickle into the camp of the Super Eagles in Abuja ahead of the AFCON qualifiers against Benin Republic.
So we look forward to the details in the course of the bulletin. Remember that you can watch this broadcast live on our website, nta.ng/live. You can also watch the replay on our YouTube channel and do follow us across social media as well. The Minister of Trade and Investment, Dr. Jumoke Uduole, says the government of Nigeria is dedicated to enhancing digital infrastructure across all state parties, while emphasizing the importance of robust personal data protection provisions to foster trust and prevent cybercrimes and fraud. This was at the 15th meeting of the African Continental Free Trade Area in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where Dr. Uduole said Nigeria acknowledges the significant strides made with the Protocol on Digital Trade, which offers pragmatic rules designed to drive digital transformation across the continent. Meanwhile, speaking of strides, the Minister of Trade and Investment, the Minister of Art, Culture, Tourism and Creative Economy, Hannatu Musa, says Africa's participation in the G20 Ministers of Culture meeting is an achievement for Africa's cultural diplomacy. Gufan Shaji Ugwanyi reports that Musawa made this known at the Salvador Convention Center in Brazil at the weekend, where she led the African Union to deliberate on Africa's rich cultural heritage and its role in promoting economic growth, social cohesion, and global understanding. The minister, who doubles as the first Vice Chairperson of the Bureau of the Specialized Technical Committee on Youth, Culture and Sports in the African Union membership of 55 states, also thanked the G20 members for including Africa in the World Group. Notably, the minister held bilateral discussions with Brazil's Minister of Culture, especially on the rehabilitation of Nigeria's cultural house in Salvador as a vital center for preserving cultural heritage and supporting the Nigeria Destination 2030 drive. Meanwhile, 4 more Nigerians have won elections into various elective positions. A United States-born Nigerian, Dr. Oye Owolewa, District of Columbia, Chiaka Bari, Jenindera District, Australia, Shegun Adeyino, Georgia, USA, and Yemi Mobolade, Colorado Springs, USA. In a congratulatory message, NITCOM Chairman, CEO, Honorable Abike Dabiri Erewa, hails their victory at the polls and applauds them for breaking such records in the political arena of their different places of residence, and setting standards. COP20. Meanwhile, the extraordinary session of the Joint Arab-Islamic Summit is underway in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, where issues concerning the Middle East, Israeli-Palestine conflict, and other global issues are on the table for discussions. Earlier on, President Bola Tinubu addressed the session where he presented Nigeria's position and call for action.
Your Royal Majesty, the two-state solution stands as a beacon of hope. I agree. Representing the right of both Israelis and Palestinians to self-determination and peace. It is not just a diplomatic article of faith, it is a vision grounded in principle of quality and mutual recognition. Achieving this vision requires a commitment to dialogue and deal-making in respect for history. We know this conflict did not begin in October 2023. It can only be resolved through principled compromise based on appreciation of the proper context. The conflict in the cradle of history is so visceral that the ripples of this division spread far and quickly. The corrosive impact of images of endless violence repeated on a billion smartphones around the world is huge. We need to find a new pathway to peace without delay. Nigeria has always championed the cause of peace and cooperation among nations. Our own experiences, domestically and regionally, have taught us that identity politics are no substitute for respecting the nuances of diversity. The path to reconciliation may be fraught with challenges, but it is through honest conversation and deal-making that we can foster understanding.
Home in Nigeria, President Bola Tinubu's recent tax reforms aim to increase revenue generation, make tax obligations fairer, and streamline compliance. The reforms are also expected to broaden the tax base, corporate income tax, and, of course, restructure where lower-income individuals will pay minimal to no income tax and simplify tax administration. Joining us from our Lagos studio is Taiwo Oyedele, the Chairman, Presidential Committee on Tax Reforms, to tell us more about this. Thank you for joining the Network News. Mr. Oyedele. Mr. Oyedele. Well, we seem to be having audio issues.
An overview of the reforms and
Mr.
the
Oyedele.
bills that were sent to the National Assembly, if you can hear me. So there are 4 bills that were sent to the National Assembly. The Nigerian Tax Administration Bill, the Nigerian Tax Bill, as well as the Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Bill, and the 4th one is the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill. So the essence of these reforms are really to simplify the tax system in Nigeria, to make it easier for people to pay tax, and to remove the burden of tax from the poorest people, like people who earn minimum wage, so we can exempt them from paying taxes. For small businesses also to be exempted from paying taxes, so they can at least have the space to be able to grow their businesses. And even for large businesses to reduce their corporate income tax rate from about 30% to around 25%, and to harmonize the various taxes they are having to pay. Also for the ordinary Nigerian to remove the burden of VAT from the things they consume, food, health, education. But I know there has been some controversies around VAT distribution formula. And I think it's mostly due to misunderstanding of what is being proposed. Section 22 of the Nigerian Tax Administration Bill contains the intention of what is being proposed. Today, VAT is remitted where companies' headquarters are based, which is mostly Lagos for many of the companies. But consumption of those goods and services are done across Nigeria. Soft drinks, airtime, cement for building houses, all those things are consumed across Nigeria, but the head offices are based in Lagos, so they remit in Lagos, and Lagos State takes the credit for the derivation, which we consider not to be fair. We think that it's better to attribute the derivation to the state where those consumptions take place, and on that basis we can then say every state should take about 60% of what is derived from their location, and the balance of 40% can then be shared based on equality of states as well as population. So we think that this is the best way for us to go, but we do take into account the feedback we have received from the governors as well as from other stakeholders, and we're currently engaging and consulting with them, because at the end of the day I think it's going to be in the interest of everyone to have the outcome that works for everyone, rather than having to withdraw the bills. We have more than 200 reform proposals in those bills. I do not think we should, because of one clause that we can discuss and agree on what should be, then withdraw all the bills.
So to demystify all this for especially the small business owner and the man on the street, the president has acknowledged that times are hard, and he has repeatedly said that these reforms will not make things worse. How so?
Correct. So Mr. President recognizes that things are hard because of the various economic reforms, particularly subsidy removal and naira flotation. We know there's high inflation, cost of living, and many Nigerians are struggling. So it is the recognition of these that we took into account in our reform proposals. And by the way, the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee is made up of eminent Nigerians from across Nigeria. All the 6 geopolitical zones are represented. We have more than 20 government institutions, private sector, civil society are represented. Men, women, Christian, Muslim, everybody of faith, including young people. We have more than 40 undergraduates from 22 universities across Nigeria represented. And we use a lot of data for what we do. So the intention is to relieve the poorest people, the masses, of the tax burden that they currently face, and also for small businesses. Many of us will know that today, small businesses pay more than 10, 20 taxes, from signage to TV and radio license to haulage, all manner of taxes. And this makes life very difficult for them. And whatever they are selling, the prices have to then go up, and then the vulnerable citizens cannot afford those basic necessities. So we have been very intentional in implementing the directive of Mr. President to make sure that when we are done with these reforms, we should be able to reduce, if not totally eliminate, the burden on the masses, low-income earners, vulnerable population, and even for large businesses. They should also see a relief in their tax burden. I think the only set of Nigerians that will have to pay a little bit more are the high net worth individuals, like those who earn like 5 million, 10 million naira a month. And those people are not many in Nigeria. It's probably about 1-2% of Nigerian population that can boast of that level of income. Those are the people that will pay a little bit more. Other than that, everybody else will see a significant drop in their tax burden, and I think it's something that we all need to embrace.
Good for many Nigerians. I've been speaking with the chairman, Presidential Committee on Tax Reforms, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, demystifying and simplifying tax administration and what small businesses and the common man can expect. Thank you for joining us, sir. Now, this is the network news on NTA, still to come. Chief of Defense Intelligence Conference holds. Digital platform to combat threats tops agenda. Details and more after the break. Let's revisit our first two stories. The Minister of Trade and Investment, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, says the government of Nigeria is dedicated to enhancing digital infrastructure across all state parties, while emphasizing the importance of robust personal data protection provisions to foster trust and prevent cybercrimes and fraud. This was at the 15th meeting of the African Continental Free Trade Area in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where Dr. Oduwole said Nigeria acknowledges the significant strides made with the Protocol on Digital Trade, which offers pragmatic rules designed to drive digital transformation across the continent. Meanwhile, the Minister of Art, Culture, Tourism and the Creative Economy, Hannatu Musawa, says Africa's participation in the G20 Ministers of Culture meeting is an achievement for Africa's cultural diplomacy. Gufan Shaju Gwanyu reports that Musawa made this known at the Salvador Convention Center in Brazil at the weekend, where she led the African Union to deliberate on Africa's rich cultural heritage and its role in promoting economic growth, social cohesion and global understanding. The minister, who doubles as the first vice chairperson of the Bureau of the Specialized Technical Committee on Youth, Culture and Sports in the African Union membership of 55 states, also thanked the G20 members for including Africa in the World Group. Notably, the minister held bilateral discussions with Brazil's Minister of Culture, especially on the rehabilitation of Nigeria's cultural house in Salvador as a vital center for preserving cultural heritage and supporting the Nigeria Destination 2030 initiative. Now, COP29 is underway in Baku, Azerbaijan, expected to hold from the 11th to 22nd of November 2024. The gathering is a pivotal global climate conference where nearly 200 countries gather to discuss key climate initiatives. Building on previous COP commitments, COP29 emphasizes several critical areas. Let's now join our correspondent Charles Alpha in Azerbaijan to bring us up to speed on the event. Charles.
Look, Najatu, it's nice to see you again join me from there.
Yeah, Charles, bring us up to speed on what's happening. What makes this year's what makes COP29 special?
Okay, I'd like to say thank you very much again for having me on the Network News live from Azerbaijan. COP29, it's all about climate financing, and that is what every nation right now is pushing for. They need to increase finance. They need to, set a new global climate financing that can help countries mitigate impact of climate change. And you may want to ask, why climate financing? Why will you want to put climate financing in the front burner? From the very first day of an event such like this, that addressing the underlying vulnerability of communities that are prone to flood and erosion and land degradation and all kinds of, impacts, would need funding. And if you want to build resilience to be able to combat climate change, you will need funding. You want to adapt, you need funding. You want to set up green projects that will help you fight climate change. You need funding. And so it is the first thing that is on the mind, on the menu of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change here in Azerbaijan, Baku. So it is very important for countries. There are other areas that countries that this climate convention will be addressing. There will be a lot of talks on adaptation. There will be a lot of talk on, although then in Dubai, there was an agreement that countries will have to move gradually from fossil fuel to and triple the renewable energy and all of that. So other issues like that will also have to be looked at. And as I talk to you, nations are still, in plenary debating the agendas for the next 12 days, where they will have to come out with concrete action that will help nations around the world to mitigate the impact of climate change. So finance is the major issues on the table. And so we are hoping that at the end, there are going to be more resolutions that will help countries like Nigeria, help build its resilience. We know that so many financial commitments have been made. $100 billion have been made, but we are hoping that at the end of these all the discussions, from the address of the Executive Secretary, United Nations Climate Change, Simon Still, this morning, he was talking about setting a new target. So it means that from the $100 billion that is already on ground, he is saying that countries will need a lot more, $3 trillion for countries to be able to effectively fight climate change. And that is where we are right now, and hoping to unravel more plans, from the UNFCCC.
All right, Charles, thank you very much for giving us this intro. We'll be expecting more updates over the course of the meeting. That was our correspondent, Charles Alpha from Azerbaijan on COP29. And back home in Nigeria, the 13th meeting of the National Council on Land, Housing and Urban Development has opened in Gombe State. Emmanuel Akila reports that the agenda of the meeting includes addressing incessant cases of building collapse in the country.
Vision of houses for Nigerians has been one of the policies and programs of successive governments. However, statistics show housing deficit in the country. The annual meeting of the National Council on Lands, Housing and Urban Development seeks to address the challenges surrounding provision of decent houses.
The minister started working with relevant various agencies, Bureau for Statistics, National Population Commission, about almost 10 agencies who have been given this mandate to go and ensure that we got an accurate data on the housing deficit.
This meeting definitely going to enhance the provisions of affordable houses in all the states.
As for the availability of houses, I think the important thing is, one, to develop our local materials so that we'll be able to have cheaper houses for people to be able to afford them. But the important thing is affordability.
The agenda for the 13th meeting has been set, and some of the issues discussed during the opening ceremony is the problem of building collapse in Nigeria. Now, participants from all over the country believe that if this issue is addressed properly, it is going to be a thing of the past.
By now, we expect that the 36 states will domesticate the National Building Code. Let's start from there. And you see that only registered professionals, builders, architects, engineers, participate in the building production process.
If enforcement is there and the builders also comply by those standards, they wouldn't have cases of building collapse here and there.
The week-long meeting is themed Housing the Future, Affordable Housing for Economic Growth, Climate Resilience and Urban Development. In Gombe, Emmanuel Akila, NTA News.
Thank you, Emmanuel. Now we're talking technology, which will continue to drive military components in containing terrorism and other high-profile crimes and evolving threats to national security. The Senate President Godswill Akpabio said this in a message delivered at the annual Chief of Defense Intelligence Conference in Abuja. Defense correspondent Ismail Musa reports.
Nigeria's 25 defense advisors and attaches are credited to 90 countries across the globe attending the 2024 Chief of Defense Intelligence Conference. The annual platform reviews activities and make projections for enhanced operations.
In preparation for the current and future warfare,
the Chief of Defense Intelligence, who acknowledged emerging security threats, stressed the remarkable combat and intelligence operations in stemming criminal activities and announced plans to establish an intelligence technology center as a force multiplier for proactive intelligence gathering.
We are determined to improve how intelligence is collected, processed, and disseminated for operations through emerging technologies.
These innovations will help process massive data sets and identify patterns that might otherwise remain undetected.
Our challenges are now only internal, hence the need to bring to bear experience in anticipating emerging threats.
These attaches are Nigeria's diplomats and security eagle eyes abroad. The 2024 Chief of Defense Intelligence Conference is focusing on exploring the role of technology in strengthening regional and national security. In Abuja, Ismail Musa, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the Acting Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, has held a strategic engagement with Army formations and units under the 8th Division Area of Responsibility to boost troops' morale and operational capability in combating banditry, kidnapping and terrorism under the Northwest Theatre Operation at Erindaji for enhanced national security. The Army Chief operational visit is to further galvanize support and cooperation of the Sakwato communities in sharing crucial information with security forces, which will aid in dismantling the network of notorious groups and restoring peace to the affected communities in the region and country.
Ilela and Tangaza are among the local government areas grappling with activities of bandits and kidnappers that led to the displacement of many people and villages in Sokoto State. This operational tour by the Acting Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluyede, is to obtain first-hand information, assess the security situation, and challenges the frontline troops are facing for appropriate action. Addressing the troops, the Army Chief commended them for their sacrifices and commitment in the fight against enemies of the state and urged them to remain vigilant so as to safeguard the territorial integrity of the country.
what are the challenges? Now, the issue is how do we react to those challenges? So one of the reasons why I'm here is the charge of my soldiers to brace up the challenge, and that we shall do.
The General Officer commanding A Division Nigerian Army Sokoto, Brigadier General Ibikule Ajosi, had earlier briefed the Acting Chief of Army Staff on the general security situation in the state. Interacting with the local communities, the Acting Chief of Army Staff advocates closer ties with the troops and sister security agencies in the areas of information sharing and intelligence gathering to defeat criminal elements in the country. From Sokoto, Bashir Ibrahim Nababa, NTA News.
Next, we're talking the implementation of the minimum wage, and the Nigeria Labour Congress directs all state councils of the union where the national minimum wage has not been fully implemented by the 1st of December 2024 to proceed on strike. The union issued this directive after its National Executive Council meeting held in Port Harcourt, Rivers State, to address urgent issues facing Nigerian workers and the Nigerian nation. NLC expresses deep frustration over delay by some state governments to implement the 2024 National Minimum Wage Act, describing it as a betrayal of the Constitution and denial of the rights of workers. The union resolves to set up a National Minimum Wage Implementation Committee, which will, among others, commence a nationwide assessment, mobilization and sensitization campaign, educating workers and citizens on their dignity and rights. It also calls for the implementation of comprehensive social protection policies which shield Nigerians from poverty, provide affordable health care, and ensure a wage that reflects the true cost of living. President Bola Tinubu congratulates Pastor Tunde Bakari as he celebrates his 70th birthday. President Tinubu reflects on Pastor Bakari's bold and patriotic efforts to advocate a better Nigeria as a co-convener of the Save Nigeria group by playing a pivotal role in leading civil demonstrations during critical periods in the nation's history. The president recognizes Bakari's unwavering faith and relentless dedication to advancing vital causes for the betterment of society and describes Pastor Bakari as one of Nigeria's most influential voices. On this occasion, President Tinubu joins Pastor Bakari's family, friends, and the Christian community to celebrate his profound impact as a religious leader. Similarly, former President Muhammadu Buhari joins family, friends, and the nation to celebrate his vice presidential running mate in the unsuccessful presidential election in 2011, Tunde Bakari, as he marks the milestone of 70 years. In a congratulatory message on the occasion to the overseer of the Citadel Global Community Church, the former president describes Pastor Bakari as a godly and valuable asset to the nation. Meanwhile, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved the reappointment of the Director General of the Nigerian Building and Road Research Institute, Professor Samson Duna, for a second tenure of 4 years. Professor Duna has been serving as the Director General of the Nigerian Building and Road Research Institute since his appointment in 2020. It's now time to join Hingino in Lagos for more reports. Hingino.
Maritime Sector and International Trade Alliance, the management of Lekki Port Enterprise Limited, Lekki Free Port Terminal, and Lagos Free Zone have launched an alliance of 3 giant shipping lines. Bolaji Akin reports that the alliance signaled the arrival of a container ship named EA Centaurus at Lekki Deep Sea Port.
EA Centaurus is a container ship measuring 272 meters in length, 43 meters wide, and with a capacity of 7,020 foot equivalent units. The arrival of this container ship in Lekki Port was as a result of mutual and economic partnership between 3 shipping companies, namely COSCO, Ocean Network Express, ONE, and ZIM.
What we celebrate is not only the upgrade of the COSCO Victory service, but also another important milestone in the cooperation between China and Nigeria in the field of maritime transport.
We believe that Lekki Port is truly the future of containerized shipping in Nigeria. The port stands as a testament to what can be achieved in Nigeria when a group of dedicated people put their efforts together.
The advancements available with the state-of-the-art and world-class terminal will give us the flexibility for all stakeholders an amazing opportunity to see new levels of prosperity and economic development in Nigeria.
The arrival of the ship is a significant milestone and the beginning of a new era to meet the demands of shipping companies and importers while contributing to the economic development of the country.
We are strengthening our position on the international stage and opening new opportunities for trade in industry.
From 1, we now have 4 shipping lines calling at Lekki Port. It's significant because it gives customers more options and allows more customers to have access to the state-of-the-art facilities that we have in Lekki Port.
This is a symbol of our unwavering dedication to positioning Lekki Port as a
transformative force in the Nigerian maritime industry.
The management of the port says it is looking forward to this kind of partnership as the port can boast of latest technology in shipping business. In Lagos, Bolaji Akim, NTA News.
Just as Lagos continues to experience geometric growth in population, it is evolving strategies to solving one of the crucial challenges that come with increase in the number of residents. This solution is driven around employing intermodal approach to transportation, which will make it easy to navigate the metropolis. Michael Olale reports that the Lagos Metro Rail line offers blue and red options, but beyond colors, there are more advantages.
Lagos, being the fifth single largest economy in Africa, is not only taking advantage of the 40% of its landmass covered by water to develop water transportation, but equally investing in the rail system. Although the plan is to develop 7 color-coded light rail network spread across the state, the effectiveness of the blue and red rail lines is changing the traveling experience of the people.
If more of these are being introduced in other areas, I think there will be a reduction in the issue of overpopulation in some certain areas.
Experts say the impact is visible, with figures proving that navigating through this axis has been simplified.
We have a study that demonstrates critically that travel time has improved in Lagos tremendously, almost double. That is what used to cost you about 2 hours now, before now, or 3. It's not just 1 hour or 1 hour plus. We want to advocate that there should be wagons for freight. Currently, the freight is for passengers.
Once travel time has reduced, what improves is the productivity of the companies and individuals will improve. And also, it improves the quality of the environment.
The 27-kilometer blue line stretching from Okokomaiko to Marina is powered by electricity, and the belief is that it is a projection into what economic activities within that corridor will look like in the future.
That corridor is being adopted as the green corridor for Lagos. Using that as a pilot phase when Lamata will now deploy alternative transition modes.
Key players say, with more investments in rail service, the era of mass transportation will return, thereby reducing congestions on roads. In Lagos, Michael Olale, NTA News.
Those are the stories from Lagos. Musa is standing by with business news, but that will be after this break.
Now, thanks for being there. Let's now begin business news with energy. Oil prices fell by more than 2% on Monday after China's latest stimulus plan disappointed investors seeking demand growth in the world's second biggest oil consumer, while supply looks set to rise in 2025. Brent crude futures lost $2.04 or 2.76% to close at $71.83 per barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures settle at $68.04 a barrel, down $2.34 or 3.32%. Both benchmarks fell more than 2% on Friday. And now to equities market. The Nigerian equities market began the week in green, sustaining gain recorded on Friday. The all share index climbed 0.14% to close at 97,373.94 points. A total of 297.8 million shares in 902 deals corresponding to a market value of 7.5 billion naira were traded. Today's data shows 38% decline in volume, 17% decline in turnover, but 10% improvement in deals. Equity capitalization increased to 59 trillion naira. Sterling Bank recorded the highest volume of 36.1 million traded shares, followed by United Bank for Africa, Access Holding, and Flour Mills Nigeria. Well, that's it. The news continues after the break.
All right, let's begin with sports here in this segment because the Super Eagles have officially opened their training camp in Abuja with the hope of securing a spot at the Africa Cup of Nations finals in Morocco next year. Head coach Austin Eguavoin, who recently returned from a medical leave in Belgium, arrived the Ivorian capital on Sunday to oversee the team's preparations. Victor Collins and Al-Hassan Yusuf and the bulk of the invited players are expected to train Tuesday morning before they take on Benin Republic, coached by Gennot Raw, former coach of the Super Eagles, ahead of their match on Thursday. Let's also tell you that Bendel Insurance have been penalized for violating the MPFL frameworks and rules during their Matchday 11 encounter against Kano Pillars on Saturday. As a result of the assault on match officials during their 1-0 defeat at home to Kano Pillars, Bendel Insurance will forfeit 3 points and 3 goals. Additionally, the club has been fined 2 million naira for inadequate security measures and for failing to maintain proper conduct among their supporters during the match. They will incur another fine of 1 million naira for actions that could tarnish the reputation of the game. Furthermore, Bendel Insurance must pay 250,000 naira each to the assaulted officials, namely Adeni Adewale, Anoluakwa Balogun, and Sadiq Shonibare. The club has 48 hours from the notification date to appeal the penalties. Sporting Lisbon has appointed João Pereira as head coach on a contract running till 2027, following the departure of Ruben Amorim to Manchester United. However, Amorim has assumed his role as Manchester United manager. The 39-year-old, who arrived north of England on Monday and was received by club chief executive officer Omar Berrada and other ranking officials, is expected to bring his own backroom staff in his bid to guide the record English Premier League champions back to genuine contenders for trophies domestically and internationally. Still in England, PGMOL have suspended David Coote pending an investigation after a video surfaced on social media that appears to show him making offensive comments about Liverpool and former manager of the club, Jurgen Klopp. The authenticity and timing of the video have yet to be confirmed, as it remains unclear whether it was recorded. Liverpool has acknowledged the video's circulation, but has chosen not to comment due to ongoing PGMOL, which is the Professional Games Match Officials Limited investigation. And that's your sports. It's back to Naja.
Thank you, Ayodiji. President Bola Tinubu has reaffirmed his administration's commitment to fostering dialogue, reconciliation and healing among all ethnic nationalities. In a special message commemorating Ogoni Matters Remembrance Day, President Tinubu stands in solidarity with the National Youth Council of Ogoni people and all Ogoni citizens to honor those who made the ultimate sacrifice in defense of the Ogoni nation's interests. This year's commemoration, themed After Price Comes Praise, reflects the collective commitment to acknowledging the pain and the lessons of the past as citizens aspire for a brighter future. The subsequent struggle of Ogoni leaders to protect the environment from harmful oil exploration was met with severe repression, culminating in the tragic execution of Ken Saro-Wiwa and 8 other leaders in 1995. And on that note, we conclude the network news on NTA.